Mehmet Okur was a big with pure outside shot, yet could also score inside with his baby hook, and when baskets were needed in tough situations, Okur was money. All along the way, becoming an all-star, an NBA champ, and going down as one of Turkey's best basketball players of all time. This is a look back on Mehmet Okur's career. Mehmet Okur grew up in Yalova, Turkey, where he found the love for the game of basketball, in particular when watching Tony Kukoc play with the Bulls, even modeling parts of his game after him. Okur soon found himself at the top flight of pro basketball in Turkey, playing for Efes Pilsen, where he would impress, showing off his outside and inside game, and this would result in Okur being selected 38th overall in the second round of the 2001 NBA draft by the Detroit Pistons. He, however, would stay overseas for one more year before going over to the States, and in his last season in Turkey, he would help his team in Turkey win the Turkish Basketball League championship while averaging 13.5 points a game. Mehmet Okur would find himself joining a competitive Detroit Pistons team in his first year in the league, led by the trio of Chauncey Billups, Ben Wallace, and Richard Hamilton. Now, despite joining a win-now team, Okur would still find himself playing meaningful minutes for the Pistons, despite being only a rookie, where he would average 19 minutes a night to go along with 6.9 points, 4.7 rebounds, and showing off his three-point touch a little bit with 33.9% from three, helping the Pistons go 50-32, getting the number one seed in the playoffs in the East. The Detroit Pistons would be pushed the distance in round one by the Tracy McGrady-led Magic, but the Pistons would prevail in 7 with more spread-out scoring compared to Orlando Magic's very solo-focused offense through McGrady. And in the second round, the Pistons would face Allen Iverson and the 76ers, but just like T-Mac and the Magic, the Pistons' defense and spread-out scoring attack were too much for AI alone to handle. Now, the Pistons would get an Eastern Conference Finals matchup against the New Jersey Nets, yet the Pistons would struggle more this series against the Nets. Jason Kidd, Kenyon Martin, and Richard Jefferson proved to be more effective trio than the Pistons had at the time, resulting in a sweep. Now, Okur would be the sixth man this whole entire playoff run to the Eastern Conference Finals, averaging 5.5 points, 4.1 rebounds, while shooting 53.8% from three. The Detroit Pistons would find themselves making multiple off-season moves and in season to change the look of the team to help them go further in the playoffs, realizing the gap for their championship window was now. The first move they would do was bring in new head coach and Larry Brown. The next thing they would do would be a little bit puzzling, still talked about today a lot, in drafting Darko Milicic with the number 2 overall pick over the likes of Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, despite having Ben Wallace and Okur at the position already. Realizing pretty quickly soon into the season, Milicic was rawer than anticipated and not ready to contribute to the Pistons this year, they made a win-now move for Rasheed Wallace. Now, Rasheed's addition would go a long way with the emergence of Tayshaun Prince and helping the Pistons excel yet again, improving their record from the year prior, going 54-28. Now, Okur this season would find himself in and then out of the starting lineup once Rasheed Wallace had arrived. But Okur would increase his numbers from his rookie year up to 9.6 points, 5.9 rebounds, while shooting 37.5% from three. Now, the Pistons would enter the playoffs as a 3 seed, where they would handle Michael Redd and the Bucks in 5 games before getting a second-round matchup against the Nets, who knocked them out a year prior. This go-around, the series would be a tight one throughout all 7 games, but it would result in Detroit slowing down Jason Kidd this time, resulting in a win and a trip to the Eastern Conference Finals yet again, where the Pistons would meet up against their rivals in the Pacers, led by Reggie Miller, Jermaine O'Neal, and Ron Artest. Now, the series would be described as a slugfest with low-scoring games and extremely physical play. Now, Detroit, this fit their perfect style of play, and they would win this bloodbath of a series in 6 games, advancing to the NBA Finals. And in the finals, the Pistons would face what appeared to be the favorite in Kobe and Shaq-led Lakers. However, the Pistons from the get-go made it look as though they were the top dog. The physicality and the spread-out scoring attack that the Pistons brought to the game was just simply too much for the Los Angeles Lakers, resulting in the Detroit Pistons winning the NBA championship in 5 games, going down for most people as the last team to ever win a championship without a true superstar on the roster, just being a true good overall team. Now, Okur would find himself playing less on this run to the NBA championship and winning it, but still played solidly when playing, averaging 11.5 minutes a night, scoring 3.7 points and 2.8 rebounds to go with 40% shooting from three. After picking up a ring, Okur was a free agent in the offseason and had shown his worth to the league as a big who can score inside and out while being a good rebounder. Mehmet Okur would get a 6-year, $50 million contract to go play for the Utah Jazz, and the Pistons couldn't really bring him back due to salary restrictions and helping keep their core together at the top, and the fact that they were clearly wanting to clear playing time for Darko Milicic, who they selected number 2 overall. Now, Okur would join a Jazz team that was led by Carlos Boozer and Andrei Kirilenko, and he would find himself taking on a larger role in Utah, and he would see his numbers increase because of it. Now, Mehmet Okur would go on to average 12.9 points, 5.1 rebounds, while coming off the bench the majority of the season, yet playing almost starter minutes. During this time, Mehmet Okur would pick up his nickname Memo, by people simply shortening his name to something easy to say. Now, despite Memo's personal growth, the team would continue to struggle, going 26-56, missing the playoffs as a whole. Now, the Jazz henceforth would have a high pick in the draft with number 3 overall and needing to hit on it after their recent struggles. And hit on it they did by drafting future All-Star and Darren Williams, helping improve the Jazz team quickly. But Williams wasn't the only reason that Jazz would have improved success in the years to come. Mehmet Okur would have a breakthrough season next year where he would start in all 82 games while averaging 18 points a game, 9.1 rebounds, quickly becoming a fan favorite in Utah. As a result, he would earn himself another nickname this year in the Money Man. He would get this nickname for hitting a countless amount of big clutch shots in big moments this year and going forward, hence Mr. Money Man. This also helped popularize the phrase, Memo is money. And thanks to Okur's breakout year and Darren Williams' addition to the Jazz, they would go 41-41. They would miss the playoffs though, but they were showing lots of promise for things to come. Now, Memo would continue upon his success the next year by averaging 17.6 points and 7.2 rebounds to go along with 38.4% shooting from 3. This would help Mehmet Okur earn his first All-Star appearance, joining teammate Carlos Boozer in the game. Now, in the All-Star game, Okur would score 4 points, but is most remembered for his one-on-one with Shaquille O'Neal. Now, the Jazz would be firing on all cylinders this year, going 51-31, getting a 4 seed in the West, and they would face the Yao Ming and Tracy McGrady-led Rockets round 1. Now, the Jazz would go down 2-0 before going on to win the series in 7, to the surprise of most, in large part due to Boozer's efforts. And in round 2, they would face the We Believe Warriors, who just came off upsetting the number 1 seeded Mavericks, but it had appeared they had used up all their magic and energy and would go down quickly to the Jazz in 5, with Okur even having an 18 rebound game during this series. The Utah Jazz would then get a Western Conference Finals matchup against the San Antonio Spurs, and the Spurs were led by the trio of Duncan, Parker, and Ginobili, and would prove to be too much for the Jazz, resulting in the Spurs advancing in 5 and eventually going on to win the NBA championship this year. Okur would average 11.8 points and 7.8 rebounds this postseason, with his numbers shrinking due to the emergence of Darren Williams. And now next season would find similar success for Okur compared to the postseason the year prior, putting up 14.5 points and 7.7 rebounds, along with 38.8% shooting from 3. Now the Jazz would go on to get a 4 seed again, and yet again would find themselves playing the Rockets. However, though, Yao Ming would miss this series due to an injury, helping the Jazz advance into round 2 in 6 games. Now in round 2, they would face the Kobe and Pau Gasol-led Lakers, where Kobe Bryant would average 33.2 points this series, helping the Lakers advance past the Jazz pretty easily despite it going 6 games. Now over the playoffs, Okur would improve upon his regular season numbers, averaging 15.4 points, to go along with 11.8 rebounds while shooting 37.3% from 3. Now next year would see Okur even have a bigger role and a rise back up in scoring, in large parts because Carlos Boozer missed significant time this year due to injury. Now Memo would go on to average 17 points, 7.7 rebounds, and a career best 44.6% from 3. Okur would also score a career high this season in points, with 43 against the Indiana Pacers during a 120-113 win this year. But the Utah Jazz would struggle more this year with Boozer missing significant time, but yet again stayed somewhat afloat due to the young player and emergence of Paul Millsap, stepping up and helping the team finish with a record of 48-34, where the Jazz would find themselves barely squeaking into the playoffs with an 8 seed. And they would get the Lakers again, but would struggle yet again in large part because Okur would pick up an injury in Game 2, causing him to miss the rest of the games. and the games 3, 4, and 5, where the Lakers would win 4-1 overall. In his limited time in this series, Okur would average 4 points and 5 rebounds. Mehmet Okur would sign a contract extension this offseason with a 2-year, $21 million, despite the injury in the postseason. Now, Okur would see a small dip in his numbers the following year, most likely because of the injury in the postseason the year prior. And Okur would go on to average 13.5 points, 7.1 rebounds on 38.5% shooting from 3. Now, the Jazz would find themselves back to where they normally were when they were fully healthy, with the 5 seed in the West going 53-29 this year, and they would face the Nuggets in round 1. But early into the first game, Okur would pick up an Achilles injury, resulting in him missing the rest of the postseason as a whole. And the Jazz were deemed to be dead in the water, with the Nuggets, led by Carmelo Anthony, to be heavy favorites. Yet Boozer, Williams, and Millsap would pick up the slack and help Utah beat the Nuggets in 6 games, to the shock of most. But the surprise run would quickly be over in round 2, with a sweep to the Lakers, who would go on to win the NBA championship. The Achilles injury Mehmet Okur picked up in the Nuggets series would cause him to miss significant time next year as well. He would only end up playing in 13 games the next season and seemed a shell of his former self when playing, averaging a career low in 12.9 minutes, 4.9 points, and 2.3 rebounds. And the Jazz would struggle this year due to Okur's injury, the departure of Carlos Boozer in the offseason, and Darren Williams demanding a trade out of Utah going to the Nets, resulting in a 39-43 season, missing the playoffs altogether. In the offseason, Mehmet Okur would be traded by the Utah Jazz to the New Jersey Nets for a 2015 second-round pick that would later go on to be Pat Connaughton. Now, this would see Okur reunited with his teammate in Darren Williams to see if they could continue the success they once had in Utah. When healthy, Okur would look okay, but struggled to stay on the floor with injuries yet again, causing him to miss lots of time this year. Okur would only play in 17 games, where he would average 7.6 points and 4.8 rebounds. All the while, the New Jersey Nets would struggle big time, going 22-44, missing the playoffs. Mid-season, Mehmet Okur would find himself being traded to the New Jersey Nets with Sean Williams and a 2012 first-round pick that would go on to be Damian Lillard to the Portland Trail Blazers for Gerald Wallace. So Portland, you can thank Mehmet for acquiring Dame Lillard and helping balance the contracts. Now, the Trailblazers a couple days later would waive Mehmet Okur, and shortly after, Okur would retire altogether from the NBA and basketball, specifically citing his injuries in the recent years and lack of being healthy. Now, Okur, over his 10 years in the NBA, would average 13.5 points, 7 rebounds, 1.7 assists, all while shooting 37.5% from 3. Mehmet Okur will go down as one of Turkey's best basketball players of all time, while putting up a solid NBA career that saw him become an NBA All-Star and an NBA champ, helping be a part of the modern trend of a big who can stretch the floor. And he potentially could have gone on to play many more years if it weren't for the injuries. But in the time he had in the NBA, he will go down as a Utah Jazz fan favorite for being money. Thanks for watching this video on Mehmet Okur. If you want to see any future videos on any other players, leave them in the comments down below and I might do a video on their career. Thanks again for watching. This has been Skid Denver.